Hey y'all, welcome to Back Porch Cooking and Reminiscing. We're the Morgans and we're happy to have y'all here with us today. Remember to hit that subscribe, like, and hit the bell button. Morning everybody, how are you this morning? Still a nice cold day here in southern Middle Tennessee. It was probably somewhere around 34, 35 degrees when I got up this morning. Had me some coffee and uh, thought we'd go ahead and do a breakfast video today. If you remember, if you watched that video that I did the chili recipe in, at the end of it, I was talking about doing a breakfast recipe. And so I think that's what I'm going to do. Now, I will tell you this meal is not going to be for everybody. There's some of you out there who's going to think this is the grossest thing that you've ever seen. But this recipe comes from probably well over 100 years ago. And back in those days, the farmers they used everything that there was on an animal when they killed it to have to eat. And so this is going to be a meal that comes from back in those days when that they used every part of the animal. So I'll go ahead and let you in on what it's going to be. It's going to be pork brains, gravy, biscuits, and the pork brains are going to be cooked with scrambled eggs. Now, again, I know some of you are going to think, man, that's nasty. But I'm telling you, it's not as bad as you think it is. I'll give you a little story about something that happened back when I was a kid. My mom had made some pork brains and gravy, and a friend of mine came over, and so I was just fixing me a plate when he came walking in, and he said, "What is that?" Well, I wouldn't tell him what it was because I knew that he wouldn't even try it if I told him what it was. So I said, "Here," I said, "let me just fix you a little bit of it. You try it, and then you tell me what you think about it." Which he could tell, it had scrambled eggs in it, but he didn't know for sure exactly what else was in it. So I made him up a little plate of it and gave it to him. He started eating it, and when he finished, he says, "How about giving me some more of that? That's pretty good." So make him up another plate of it, and he eats all that, and then he says, "Well, what was it?" And when I told him that it was pork brains, eggs, and gravy, he said, "Well, I probably wouldn't eat it if you'd told me what it was to start with, but now that I've had it, I think I really do like it." So every time he'd come over after that, he'd always ask, "You got any pork brains and eggs and gravy?" And of course, like I say, we didn't eat them that often, but we did eat them a few times. So y'all stick around. Like I say, this is a really good recipe, and I think if you ever try it, a lot of you'll find that you like it because it's something a little different, but it's a really good meal. So hang in there with us, and I'm gonna show you how to cook them. All right. So now y'all know that normally I make homemade biscuits, but with this meal, I've always enjoyed canned biscuits with the pork brains and eggs and gravy. So we got us a can of biscuits here, and we're using the Grand's buttermilk biscuits. So we're going to put them in a cast iron skillet, get them babies popped there. And then, like I say, we're going to put them in the cast iron skillet. Now, I did put us some butter in the bottom of this cast iron skillet so that our biscuits wouldn't stick to it. So we'll get them put in there. And I've also preheated the oven 350 degrees. And let's see here. I always like to put those, they've got a little kind of a round area on the biscuit. I always like to put those down. That way you don't have your biscuits don't turn out with a round top on them. Or don't really know if that makes all that much difference or not, but just one of those things that I've always done. All right, we got our last biscuit here. We'll put that one right in the center. All right, and then we're going to put those in this oven. Like I say, I've already preheated it 350 degrees. All right, got those in there. Now, next thing we're going to do, we're going to make us some gravy. So let's get this turned on here. We're going to start off about we'll start off about a 5. Now, something I like to do in my gravy is that I like to use just a little bit of bacon grease in with my gravy when I'm making my roux. So that's what we got right here. So we're going to get us just about that much, maybe a little over a half of a tablespoon of bacon grease to go in there. That give us just a little bit of flavor. And then we're going to use regular cooking oil for the remainder of what we need. And this is just vegetable oil. It's just what we got today. So we're going to use that. We're going to put us just maybe a couple of tablespoons of oil in there, but we're going to leave that sit out because we may need some more of that before we're done. We got our eye on. We're going to get us some flour here. And y'all, if you've watched some of my breakfast videos, y'all have seen me make gravy before, so you know it's not that hard of a thing. I'm going to change my burner size here since that's a small pot. Now we're going to get us a little cup here, and we're going to get us some flour. Again, just start off with a little bit of flour, and then we can add to it if we need to. So we're going to put that there, and we're going to grab our whisk here. And we're going to give that a good stir and see if we need to add more flour to it or if we're in good shape. And looking like we may need to add a little bit more flour to it. Now, again, if y'all watched me do gravy before, you know what we're doing here. We're making a roux. And like I say, it's going to need just a little more flour in it. I don't mind having to add more flour, but I hate it when I have to add more oil to it. So I try not to overdo on the flour. Maybe just a touch bit more, but not a lot, because it's just almost there where I want it to be. Once we get this done, I'll hold this up to the camera where y'all can see what our gravy roux looks like. All right, I'll hold it up here where you can kind of see it maybe. So it's kind of thick. It's kind of like, like it would be if you were making a pudding and just getting started with making your pudding. But that's how we want it to be. You can see how it drips off of the whisk there. So that is pretty good right there, how we want it to be. So I believe we're through with our flour for the time being. So we're going to set this over here out of the way. Now we're going to salt and pepper it. So we're going to put a little bit of salt in there. We're going to put us a little bit of pepper. Now, and as Y'all know, and I tell you all the time, you use what you want to use, the amount of it. You may like it really peppery. You may like it with a little pepper. You may like it with no pepper. So now what we're going to do is we're going to brown this roux, because right now, if you don't do a little bit of browning on it, you're going to really be able to taste that flour taste. And we don't want to taste the flour taste in our gravy. So we're going to let that sit there. We'll probably turn the heat up a little bit on it, go up to about a 7. And we're going to just let that sit there, kind of clean up my mess I made here when I was getting the flour. All right. Have a drink of coffee. And wait on that to start browning up. Doesn't take too long. It'll start to boil there pretty quick. The reason I'm doing all this first is because the pork brains and eggs don't take long at all to do those. And I don't want those done way before everything else is ready. So again, we just let this continue to heat up and brown. And once our gravy gets ready to put milk in it, I'll come back and we'll finish it out. All right, y'all. So we've got our roux for our gravy, and I've browned it because with this I do like a pretty brown gravy. So you can see that's a good brown roux that we're going to use to make our gravy. Now turn the heat down to about 3.5. And now we're going to pour some milk in there. Now, again, don't add too much milk, because if you add too much, your gravy will be thin. And once it's thin, there's nothing you can do to thicken it back up. Well, you can try to thicken it back up, but it doesn't always work. So we're going to take our heat back up to about a 5 now that we got our milk in there. And just, that's the thing with gravy, you got to keep stirring. Now, and when I was making the roux, that's also something that you got to do, is you got to stay with it. You can't walk away from it, or it'll burn. And nothing worse than a burned roux, because then you got to start all over again. But if you stay with it and just keep stirring it until it gets to that brownness that you want it at, then you cut your heat down and you pour your milk in, and you just keep stirring. That's the main thing. Otherwise, you're going to have lumpy gravy, and nobody likes lumpy gravy. All right. So we're going to give that a minute. I'm going to check our biscuits out, see what they're looking like. Oh, yeah, they're looking good. And once this starts to thicken, we'll probably have to add some more milk to it, or you can add water to it, either one. If you don't have a lot of milk, you can use water. That's actually how my mother always did it. She used about a half and half mixture of milk and water. So that is something you can do. You know, a lot of people say it's hard to make gravy. It really isn't that hard. It's you might have to try it a couple times before you get it right, but again, the main thing is that you keep it stirred up. That's the main thing. And I'm gonna go up just a little bit more on the heat. And it's starting to get a little thicker. All right, so we'll just give that a few minutes there by itself, get good and warm. And it won't be long till we will have our gravy made. And then we can start on the star of the show after that. You're going to see your gravy's going to finally start to bubble up a little bit. And as it starts to bubble, that's when it's starting to thicken. So again, you want to keep stirring. Oh yeah, looking good. All right. Now it when it starts to get thick, it thickens up quick. It went from being pretty runny to being thick pretty quick. So we're going to leave it on the heat because we want it to get a little bit thicker because we want to add a little more milk to it and make a little more gravy out of it. All right, let's add just a touch more milk. Like I say, that'll help us to make just a little bit more gravy. And I'm just going to go ahead and cut that heat completely off. And that is some pretty gravy. Boy, if you could just smell it. Let's see how this is how you want your gravy to be. That's not too thick, not too thin. All right, so we're just going to set that over here. We're going to turn that burner on just a very, very low setting just to keep our gravy warm. And I'm going to do a little cleanup here and then we'll come back and we'll get to cooking some pork brains and eggs. Okay, so as y'all can see way down there at the end of the counter, our biscuits are done. I've taken those out of the oven. Our gravy's done. It's sitting there on a warming eye. And we got us a pot here or a pan for making our pork brains and eggs. So first thing that we're going to do is we're going to put us just a little bit of oil in this pan. That'll be about enough right there. That might be a tablespoon and a half. I've got the eye set on about a 4 right now. We may have to turn that up. Now, back years ago, you could get fresh pork brains from the grocery store. They came in a little container about the size of what chicken livers comes in. But from what I've been told, after COVID hit, you really can't find them anymore. I've checked numerous stores, even talked to meat processing places. Nobody has fresh ones anymore. So all that leaves you that you can go with are the canned ones. And these are Rose's pork brains, and it says with milk gravy. All right, first thing, we don't want that milk gravy. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to drain that milk gravy off of it because I see absolutely no point in having that. All right, so we got them drained off there. Now, what we're going to do is well, we still got quite a bit of juice in there, so let's drain a little more off of it. We want to get as much of that out as we can. All right, that ought to be much better. All right, so this is what they look like. And they're just little chunks of meat basically. But we're going to put them in that oil. And as you can see, we had a little bit of the milk gravy left. And then we're going to take us a little spatula here. And we're going to kind of break them up a little bit because I don't particularly care for them in big chunks, but we'll break them up some. And these are already cooked. They're packaged cooked, so um, you don't have to worry about getting the raw ones like the fresh ones were years ago when we could get those. Um, I learned to eat these from my dad. A lot of the stuff I eat is because that's what my dad liked. We're going to put a little bit of salt and a little bit of pepper in them. And we're just going to let them kind of cook dry. But anyway, my dad always loved pork brains. I'm not really sure where he first encountered them. Probably his family. They always were kind of a farming community and or in a farming community, and so probably that's where my dad learned to eat pork brains at. And of course, as I grew up, that's just something that we had occasionally. We didn't have them all the time. Again, they do have a lot of cholesterol in them, and so you don't want to eat them real regularly. But so, like I say, we're gonna let these cook down now. I will tell you, they don't smell the greatest in the world when they're cooking, but once they're cooked, they do taste really good. So as y'all can see there, what they're looking like, and they're starting to cook down, and that milk gravy that was left is evaporating out of them, and we're getting them good and hot. Now I've already cracked us 3 eggs. With that little can, you want to use about 3 eggs to go in it. And you basically just do them just like you do scrambled eggs. You put some salt and pepper in them and put a little milk in. And once these get dried up a little bit, that's about good right there. Then we're going to pour our scrambled egg mix in there on top of it. Like I say, that's you make this just like you'd make regular scrambled eggs. All right, now we'll pour that in there. Get all of our pepper out that we can. And then you just want to stir it around so that you get the eggs and the brains all together. Again, at this point, you're just basically making scrambled eggs. So you just let it cook, pull everything down from the sides. At this point, it starts to smell a little bit better than it was smelling when it was just the brains cooking by themselves. I remember usually this would be something my mother would cook on a Sunday morning, and we'd get up and we'd have pork brains, eggs, gravy, and of course she always made homemade biscuits. But again, as the years went by, I got to the point where I really liked them with the canned biscuits. And so that's why that these today are going to have canned biscuits in them, not homemade. Plus, I just didn't want to take the time to make homemade biscuits. And as you can see, these are starting to cook up just like a scrambled egg would. And you just want to cook them until they're good and dry, which doesn't take too long. But again, you want to keep stirring them, or you'll get brown scrambled eggs. And I don't know about y'all, but I don't care for scrambled eggs. But hey, something else too. If y'all have ever had these, leave us a comment on what you think about pork brains and eggs. Whether you liked them or whether you didn't, or what you thought about them, and or if you've ever thought you might want to try them, or if this video makes you think you want to try them. And these are just about done. Like I say, we just want them to get good and dry. They're just about there. I think we can turn the heat off on them. And then once we get this done, I'm going to show you what you do next to eat them. I keep turning stuff on here that I don't mean to turn on. But again, just keep stirring them around. All right, boys and girls, these are done. We're going to set them over to the side, and we're going to make us a plate, and then we'll come back and I'll show you. There's a method to eating pork brains and gravy. Not really, but I have a method anyway. So when we come back, I'm going to get them plated up, and I'm going to show you how I do it. Alrighty, so now we got them done. This is what they're going to look like. You can see the scrambled eggs. You can see the brains in there with it. Now, here comes the magic. We're going to take our gravy. See, we got our good gravy there. It's good and thick. We're going to put some of that gravy just right over the top of them. My mouth is already watering. All right. So that's about enough gravy. Now there's plenty more of the brains and eggs left. That's only about half of them, and so we'll probably either have these later or maybe have them tomorrow. So we got our eggs and our gravy mixed up here. So this is what I've always liked to do with it. Just kind of mix it up a little bit so that everything's got some gravy on it. One thing I didn't tell you is be sure you taste your gravy and see if it needs any more salt or any more pepper or anything on it. All right, so we got them mixed up there. We're gonna get us a biscuit. Like I say, I have a method to this. So I'm gonna take my biscuit. I'm gonna break it apart if I can get it to break. I usually like to do those flaky layered biscuits because they break apart easier, and you can get more pieces out of it. But these, they don't really like to break apart in flaky layers because they're not flaky layers. But again, this has always been my favorite way to eat these as I was growing up. So break your little piece of your biscuit off here, and you get you some of your brains and eggs on your fork, and you put them on there just like that. All right, I'm gonna set this down for just a second so I can move the camera up here where you can see me, because I wouldn't want you to think that after cooking this that I didn't eat them, because I promise you I eat these. All right, so now we get our biscuit and our eggs and gravy and everything together, and you got a bite of heaven right here. All right, so here we go. We're gonna eat this. and then I'm going to cut the camera off and I'm going to go finish it. All right, here we go. Mm, it's like Kentucky Fried Chicken. Finger looking good. Y'all, I know, like I say, it sounds gross, and a lot of you probably think it's gross. But if you can find these canned pork brains at the grocery store, they're actually hard to find. Um, there's only maybe one little store in our area that I know carries them. But if you can find them, get you some, give them a try. You may only try it once and you may never want to ever do it again, but you may try it once and say, oh my goodness, where have these been all my life? So give them a shot, see what you think about them. And as I said, I'm going to go sit down, eat these, and then get doing something today. I don't really know what, but we'll find something to do. Well, first off, I've got to edit the video and do all that, so that takes a little time. But again, appreciate y'all being here with us today. Hope you enjoyed this cooking. Even if you don't try it, hope you enjoyed watching me do it. And just come back and see us again. Um, I think maybe our next video may be either chicken and dressing or chicken and dumplings, since we're getting close to Thanksgiving. That may be something you may enjoy our recipe and you may make it for your family. So again, y'all have a good one. I'm going to eat.